And here's that intro card. I hope it was worth the wait, but if not, it helps me edit the YouTube videos. Now, we're going to see Kark with the Greenskins versus Alfredino and the Empire. This is round one of their best of three, and time to see who comes out on top between these two fine players. Kark coming from Korea, and then we're going to be seeing Alfredino here representing France. Now, going into slow-mo so we can cover the armies and make sure we see these lovely Doom Diver catapult rounds flying in. These goblins flying to their early demise, all in the name of Gork or Mork, whichever one they happen to follow. Starting off, you're going to see the Bright Wizard from the Empire, apparently from the Lore of Fire, shooting off a fireball. In return, you're going to be seeing the Greenskins, who will start with firing off a Vindictive Glare, and that Vindictive Glare is coming from the Goblin Great Shaman on top of an Arachnarok Spider with the Spider Shrine. Going to have Gork'll Fix It, as well as, or is that actually Itchy Nuisance? No, yeah, it's Gork'll Fix It, along with Itchy Nuisance and Vindictive Glare. You're going to see another leader here, a Goblin Big Boss, riding in on top of his wolf. Going to have They Need Stabbin' for that melee defense and armor debuff. And if I'm guessing right, and it looks like, yep, there it is. The fireball is actually going to be targeting him, so we'll keep him in view to see if it hits him or not. Aside from him, the Greenskins army is going to be fleshed out by some cav units in the form of Orc Boarboy Biggins. It looks like we're going to have 3 of them. Also going to have some Goblin Wolf Rider archers over here on the right flank with Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers. It does look like that fireball is going to miss, and the Goblin Big Boss is going to live to fight another day. We're going to see that Doom Diver catapult that we mentioned earlier. We're also going to see a 4th unit of Orc Boarboy Biggins, so a lot of big anti-large cavalry here for the Greenskins. We have Goblins making up the front line, looks like 3 of them, as well as 2 Orc Biggins. So big anti-large army here with some heavy infantry, a little bit of firepower to counter skirmish, and then, you know, the hero is the magic. For the Empire, on the other hand, we're going to have an unbreakable front line with Sigmar's Sons and 2 units of Flagellants. Then going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Huntsmen. Interesting pick here. I suppose they can do well against the Orc Boarboy Biggins, who don't have very high armor, and these guys do have a bonus versus large with their missile attacks. Up in the front for the heavy cav, we have Knights of the Blazing Sun. Looks like 3 of them. All of them are going to have that 20% magic resist, and they also have fire damage, which can be very good against Greenskin trolls because they have a weakness to it, but there is not a troll to be seen on this battlefield, so very much a Greenskin build going against the meta. I also missed that there was another combination of Forest Goblin Spider Riders and Goblin Wolf Rider archers on the Greenskin left flank. Behind the Empire front line, we have 3 units of Spearmen, and then besides that Bright Wizard, we have Boris Todbringer, going to be bringing the Reichland Runefang, Crush the Weak, as well as Foe Seeker, and I think that's going to round it out. So, let's kick it into full speed here and see how combat progresses. Immediately, both front lines just rushing towards each other. Looks like the Empire is going to be peeling back their heavy cavalry behind the infantry lines because they don't want to take combat by themselves against the Orc Boarboy Biggins. And the Orc Boarboy Biggins, realizing the infantry is pushing forward, are also going to pull back and turn. Over here, does look like the Goblin Wolf Riders here got pretty hard counter-skirmished by the Huntsmen, who just shot them to pieces, and these guys aren't the worst in melee either, so going to be a pretty good answer to the Greenskin skirmishing force. Over here, Knights of the Blazing Sun, though, just getting devastated by a charge from the Orc Boarboy Biggins and the Goblin Great Shaman. Those guys down to about 1/6 of their health. Over here, another Vindictive Glare going down and hitting the Bright Wizard, doing some good damage. And the Greenskins right now look like they're just doing a good job of kind of exploiting gaps in the line and rushing in, and I think these Huntsmen will need to be careful, but we'll see how the heavy cavalry does in its interception of the Greenskin units. A nice Burning Head going down, doing a lot of damage to the Orc Biggins. Looks like the Greenskin cavalry did get successfully intercepted, and a nice play from the Empire, getting those Knights of the Blazing Sun in on top of these very dangerous units before they can get to the Huntsmen, and the Huntsmen are now going to be able to punish them in turn now that they're pinned in place. One unit did get through, but we see Knights of the Blazing Sun going in strong right now. And, yeah, balance of power quite even, but looks like the Empire may be slightly ahead. Over here on the peripheries of the battlefield, you're going to see these Knights of the Blazing Sun running for their lives, but unfortunately, the poison from the Forest Goblin Spider Rider archers is going to slow them down just enough so the Orc Board Boy Biggins can get on top of them while the Wa is active. So Wa across the battlefield is going to be a big boon to the Greenskin forces, and we'll see if they can keep up the momentum or if the Empire can start dragging them down with these archers and cycle charges from the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Boris going after the Goblin Great Shaman. Goblin Great Shaman not the best in melee, but going to be tanky with good armor at 120. And also they need stabbing, and the Goblin Big Boss have both run in here. Gorkle Fix-It has been popped, debuffing his speed significantly, but the Greenskins aren't staying on top of him. Will the Goblin Big Boss be able to stagger him? He's going to get another hit in, but I think Boris is going to take off very soon here. We will see if the Greenskins can keep him on the ground. No, it looks like he's going to get right back up in the air. Oh, wait! For the intercept and the stagger, a beautiful play. The Forest Goblin Spider Riders diving in, providing the mass to slow Boris down. Every second they can keep him on the ground is going to be so important, but it looks like he's finally going to be able to peel away and escape due to great sacrifice by the Knights of the Blazing Sun, a few other units who dove in there to help pin him in place. Oh, a big burning head going across the Greenskin infantry that's been bogged down in this combat. A Wa going down, but the Unbreakable Sigmar Sons are really proving their worth here. And the Bright Wizard, 51 kills, and he's been diving into combat too. A bit gutsy, but, every little bit counts when you're up against the Greenskins. Boris going in to the Forest Goblin Spider Riders. Probably going to get an easy terror route, but I doubt he'll be able to do anything in terms of closing the gap on them. The Greenskins have taken the lead in the balance of power, but still a close game, and you have Huntsmen on the field with good ammunition left and good health. So you also have some Spearmen. I love this play here coming in from Alfredino, just letting his regrouped units kind of stay on the outside of the battle, not charging them right back into the fray where they can get killed off. And over here, Boris staying on the ground, tanking a lot of damage, but it's allowing the Huntsmen to just murder everything that is blobbing up around him. And the Greenskin leadership, although I understand the temptation and, you kind of want to keep going further, they want to shut down these archers or get their heroes out of here, because the Huntsmen are the factor, I think, that can win the Empire this game. If the Goblin Great Shaman and the Goblin Big Boss get careless and continue to chase Boris and don't run away from here, while these archers are still firing, they may take a lot of damage. Granted, the 120 armor on the Goblin Great Shaman is significant, and it does look like the point is moot as the Greenskin forces are just pouring in to shut down the remainder of the Empire forces. And don't forget the Doomdiver catapult back here that's been launching gobos the entire time, doing a very good job of keeping that pressure up. But you also have to remember that each one of these artillery rounds that flies into the enemy is going to do a significant leadership debuff. So the fact that this unit was never compromised and it was just allowed to fire the entire game is also going to be a big contributing factor to the Greenskin victory. And every little bit counts, guys, so nice artillery play there. I think a nice pick from our Greenskin player. And Kark is going to be taking this first round unless something absolutely astonishing happens. Boris Todbringer starting to waver, and I think that's going to be army losses, and the Greenskins will take the battlefield. A Pyrrhic victory. Yeah, very close fight. Yep, Doomdiver's firing the entire time. But yeah, that was a fun first battle. I do think it was well fought on both sides. Looking at the kills, you can just see the Orc Biggins, in spite of some very vicious burning heads to their faces, got a lot of damage in here. And the Orc Boar Boy Biggin rush, having 4 of them is a pick that you don't see quite often, and it worked very well against this build. But I also want to point out that Alfredino's build, I think, was solid across the board. It's an interesting build, maybe not what I would bring, but I don't really have any critiques for it. I think it is a fine build. Maybe a bit more single entity killing power in the form of melee, but I see the logic here. Just focus on using the Huntsmen to bring down the big single entities and the cav units, and use the Knights of the Blazing Sun and the Spearmen to play defense, while the Unbreakable front line just tries to blunt the initial charge of the Greenskins, allowing the Huntsman and Boris and the Bright Wizard to get some damage done. And the Greenskin army, also very well built. I like the Doomdiver Catapult a lot, especially since it's just one. It can be a risky pick against the Empire, and for instance, if the Empire had a cannon or anything like that, it would probably be value lost very quickly. Also, if the Bright Wizard had focused with fireballs on top of the Doomdiver Catapult, I think that probably could have got it, broken at least halfway through the fight, just destroying the models with those fireballs. And yeah, I mean, I guess other than that, there just wasn't... The Knights of the Blazing Sun are nice, but unlike Pistoliers or something, they can't really outrun anything in the Greenskin army in terms of mobility, so they'll want to have, like, I don't know, maybe a Pistolier or something just to answer Greenskin artillery, because I think that will be the main weakness with this Empire army, is the lack of anti-artillery power. So, for instance, if, God forbid, he brought more than one Doomdiver Catapult, there's not a lot in this army to be able to address that. Like Knights of the Blazing Sun, if they go charging out after that, they're going to get destroyed by the Greenskin large units here. So anyway, I digress, and once again am going on an endless rant. So let's stop it here while we're ahead and move on to round 2. And Kark usually bringing rather strange builds, kind of as evident from the Greenskin build you just saw. He's a bit counter meta, and he's one of my favorite players in the game in terms of army building. I think his army building is absolutely astonishing. Just very unique. His builds, you can tell they're his, and yeah, I don't know. I'm a sucker for originality. I'm such a hipster. But let's go ahead and watch round 2 here, which is Skaven versus Dark Elves. Remove that blocker and get into it. And there you have it, folks. Kark bringing the Skaven versus Alfredino's Dark Elves, round 2 in their best of 3 series. I love this already. Is this game free? Baron Shot, unfortunately, it is not. But it is definitely worth the money. I'm not sure. There may be a sell because it's a Labor Day on Monday, so hopefully that is the case. But if not, yeah, just keep your eye out for sales. I think it is definitely worth it. As a content creator, obviously I own all the content, but I also stand by it very firmly. I think it is the best strategy game out there right now, especially in terms of multiplayer. Well, I'd say mostly in terms of multiplayer. I wouldn't say the campaign is. I'd probably give that to maybe a Paradox game or something along those lines. Anyways, my apologies for the rant before I rant about this battle, but let's throw it into slow-mo and see what the Skaven have brought to the battlefield here. So, Kark going to be bringing a front line of Night Runners. Already happy about that, and this front line will consist of 4. So these guys cost about 500 apiece, but a very solid mid-range skirmish unit with decent melee stats. We have Skaven slaves behind them. It looks like 3 Skaven slaves with spears and 1 regular old Skaven slave. We're going to have a Doom Wheel here being ridden by Ikit Claw and a generic Doom Wheel right next to him. Ikit Claw is going to have Howling Warp Gale as well as Warp Lightning, and he'll be riding around in that terror causing, I forget the word for it, so I'm not even going to try. But we have Clan Rat Spears, 3 of them back here with 4 Rat Ogres to provide the mass and armor piercing, protecting the firepower of this Skaven army, which is going to be the Natty Boo Boo Sharpshooters, and it gets a Zap, the Regiment of Renown Warp Lightning Cannon that debuffs, or basically, causes abilities to have to reload time. So quite a nuisance indeed, especially for those wizards. Now, the Dark Elves on the other side of the battlefield are going to have a front line of Bleak Swords. Looks like we have 4 of them. No, make it 5. going to have 2 Scourge-Runner Chariots. Up in the air, we have the Crows of Cain Regiment of Renowned Harpies. Then we're going to also have in the air a Feral Manticore and make it 2. So quite a significant air force in this Dark Elf army. Terror-causing air force, always useful against the Skaven, who are known for their low leadership. Going to have Sisters of Singing Doom, the Regiment of Renowned Sisters of Slaughter, over here supporting a Supreme Sorceress of Beast on a horse, going to be bringing Arcane Conduit, the Manticore Summon, and Flock of Doom. Now to round out this Dark Elf army, it wouldn't be complete without Doomfire Warlocks. They're going to be over here on the left flank, vanguarded, and hidden in the forest, so we'll see if they find any juicy opportunities to go forward and exploit the Skaven backline. Also, back here, we're going to see a single unit of Dark Riders, also vanguarded and cleverly hidden over here in a small bit of forest, and we'll see if they can get any value here. But as you can see, the Skaven backline is quite sturdy with Rat Ogres and Clan Rats, so the Dark Elves will have to do some poking and prodding before they can get on top of them. Right now, the Doom Wheels being supported by the Night Runners and doing a lot of work here. Natty Boo Boo Sharpshooters and the Night Runners are just devastating the Crows of Cain. And oh my goodness, even the Doom Wheel rounds are doing a lot of damage. And so far, this Skaven army is doing very, very well for itself. And we'll have to see what the Dark Elves do to react. But so far, not looking the best. Sisters of Singing Doom are pressing forward. And this is where things can get hairy for the Skaven, is as soon as the Dark Elf infantry can close the gap. Right now, their range units have been doing very well against the Dark Elf, large. So you're going to see the Scourge-Runner Chariots here already routing, taking a ton of damage. They still have 2 models, so don't be deceived. They're still dangerous. Crows of Cain taking a ton of damage, but we'll see if the Skaven can keep up the momentum when all of the Dark Elf units close the gap and get into melee combat. Over here, we do have Doomfire Warlocks fighting Rat Ogres, which is actually a very good fight for the Doomfire Warlocks. Their physical resistance and lack of armor means the Rat Ogres just really don't have any advantage against them. And as you can see, the Rat Ogres are losing that fight right now. And Clan Rat Spears getting into the fight, but maybe a bit too late, but they should help turn the tide. Sisters of Singing Doom slaughtering most of what they come in contact with, and this is where it gets dangerous for the Doom Wheels and Nickit, because these Witch Elves cause rampage, and you don't want those important Skaven units rampaging into Death's Embrace. Right now we have Death Runners shooting the Bleak Swords down. Scourge-Runner Chariots are shooting them from afar, and it looks like both of them are currently online, but down to 3 models between the 2 units. So definitely taking some significant damage, but I think in the late game here, we may see them start doing some work, and already the balance of power starting to shift towards the Dark Elves. Over here in the backline combat, you can see that the Dark Riders and the Doomfire Warlocks have come out on top against the Rat Ogres, taking some damage because of the Clan Rat Spears, but as long as they use their mobility to get away, they should be in an okay position. Over here, we're going to see the Dark Elves threatening the backline further, and we'll see if those Night Runners can get away from them or not, but it looks like they're going to get intercepted. Over here, Dark Elves chasing the Natty Boo Boo Sharpshooters off the map with the Crows of Cain, who in spite of all that initial damage have come back and still proven valuable. And it looks like our Dark Elf player here, Alfredino, is just doing a very good job of routing units, but keeping the chase up so they cannot regroup and come back to provide value. Howling Warpgale, nice pick there. Icket Claw being able to pin the threatening Manticores in place. And Manticores are surprisingly deadly against him, so I like that he had the foresight to bring that ability with him. Over here, going to see the Rat Ogres regrouping, but promptly getting shut down again by the Slaanesha's Harvesters. And it just looks like, in spite of a very strong initial start from the Skaven here, it just looks like the Dark Elves have kept their focus and powered through. Right now, Night Runner's going to dive into the Bleak Swords. We'll see. If they can rout them before the other ones show up, that will be a nice pickup, but you know, looking across the battlefield, just I don't think the Night Runners are going to be enough to win the day. They're out of ammunition. Manticores will, you know, rout them no problem. Scourger Chariots will kill them. And other than them and Ikit Claw, it looks like everything for the Skaven has pretty much been dealt with. So a very nice comeback from Alfredino. I mean, I would have been tilted by the initial results of that battle, and he just kept his composure and continued the fight, and was able to pull it off by closing the gap and getting in combat with melee. And, you know, that's the weakness of these heavy ranged armies, but I'll admit I thought he had enough meat on the bone to protect the Skaven range units. And it just turns out I was wrong. It's my call, and a good gamed Alfredino here. Going to be bringing it to a round 3. And this is where things get bad, because it gets attacked by the Manticores. The army losses are kicking in, and that's going to be a valiant defeat for Kark. No, he had magic because he had Ikit Claw. Ikit Claw does have the lore of Ruin, and you can see him using those Howling Warp Gales and Warp Lightnings to some effect, but I think Kark has become one of my favorite players. Yeah, same here, Malverde. He's awesome. Yeah, I think one less Doom Wheel would have worked out better for him. I agree. He needed maybe some more clan rats there in the army to help lead himself to victory, because yeah, you have to be able to protect those range units. And even though they got a ton of damage done initially, I have to agree in hindsight, although it's glorious to see a double Doom Wheel build, that second Doom Wheel probably would have been better. I mean, honestly, he had 19 units, though. It's not like he could have crammed too much more meat in there. Phrasing. Anyways, get rid of the Doom Wheel and maybe grab a couple Plague Monks, maybe a Storm Vermin Sword and Board, and another Clan Rat Spear. I don't know. Yeah, I think he could have, swapped it out still just to get 2 better infantry units in here to protect. Give Ikit Doom Rockets. He does have a Doom Rocket. Oh, and yeah, not like the campaign nukes. That would be awesome. But insane. I think the Warplane Cannon can be fine. But yeah, if they go Bolt Thrower heavy or like, Fireball the Ikit Zap, then it could be in some trouble. But overall, I think Warplane and Cannon, it's fine for me here. Mortars are a must-have in this matchup. Oh, yeah. The Poison Wind Mortars, I agree. I don't know why I didn't even notice that. But that's Kark for you, man. Always off meta. But yeah, if you got rid of the Doom Wheel, brought a Poison Wind Mortar, and then an extra Clan Rat Spear, I think that would have been just the ticket. Because then the anti-infantry power for this Skaven would have been a lot stronger. Because that's really the main problem in this. I mean, I get he has anti-infantry in the form of the Doom Wheels, which I thought he used very nicely there in the initial stages of the battle. But I think the Night Runners, although they did some good work against Bleak Swords and stuff, they weren't where they needed to be in the fight. They were on the left flank with the Doom Wheels, and they needed to be on the right flank. And they needed to not rest until the Sisters of Singing Doom were killed. Because in this Skaven army, the only thing that I think would be truly effective at killing them, because keep in mind, Doom Wheels, although they can kill them, they don't want to be in combat with them, because then they're going to rampage and get killed by Manticores. But the range power of the Night Runners killing off these Sisters of Singing Doom, that would have been, to me, the game-winning play here. Because these guys, aside from getting 198 kills, gotta remember they were getting terror routes, they were causing rampages, and Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for them, I don't want to say like the Dark Elves would have lost, but I think it would have been a much harder fought game because Sisters of Singing Doom murdered every single unit of infantry in this army single-handedly, basically. And the Doomfire Warlocks were able to kill the Rat Ogres, and really that's each one of these units took care of the other unit that they didn't want to deal with, which elves probably don't want to be fighting Rat Ogres for a long time. Doomfire Warlocks do not want to be fighting Clan Rat Spears or Skaven Slaves, whereas Witch Elves, just gonna eat them right up. Kark bringing the Empire versus Alfredino's High Elves. This is round 3 of their best of 3 series, so match point. Time to see who moves on and who's sent packing. Now, popping it into slow motion and removing that intro card, we are going to start with the High Elf army here, being brought by Alfredino. Up front, we're going to see Spearmen, backed up by 3 Rangers. I love Rangers in this matchup. I think they're actually very good against the Empire state troops. Behind them, we're going to have ample firepower in the form of 3 archers. He's going to have another 3 spearmen, bringing it to a total of 5 High Elf spears. And the 3 spearmen in the back are going to be sitting on top of some Eagle Claw bolt throwers. It looks like we're going to have 3 of them for that artillery. In the very rear, we have a single unit of Silver Helms to provide that backline defense. We have 2 nobles, both of them on horses, and it looks like both of them going to be naked. Not literally, but meaning without abilities. We have Teclis on top of his steed here, and he is going to be bringing the Sword of Teclis, Potion of Shokroy, Regrowth, Enfeebling Foe, and Net of a Mintok, along with a lot of passives. Now for the Empire, who's getting shot by the Eagle Claw bolt throwers, and we'll be bringing some war wagons with mortars. My hero, God bless you, Kark. Mortar wagons, that makes my heart sing. But for this army, aside from the mortar wagons, we're going to see, hidden in the forest, Empire Knights with the Royal Outdoor Grippites. We're going to have a Warrior Priest with Shield of Faith, the Hammer of Sigmar, and a Power Scroll, or Scroll of Protection, sorry, with a Jade Wizard, Regrowth, and Earthblood on top of him. And for the hero, Karl Franz on a horse with the Reichland Runefang, and stand your ground and hold the line. For the infantry, we have Spearmen. Looks like Empire Swordsmen. So 4 Spearmen, 2 Swordsmen that I can see. The aforementioned war wagons with mortars. We have the Silver Bullets handguns. And then to round out the rest of the force on the left flank, we do have Empire Knights and Demogryph Knights with halberds. So let's go ahead and kick it into the full speed and see how this battle progresses. Eagle Claw bolt throwers seem to be going for the war wagons, but I have to say that regrowth, aside from healing heroes, will be beautiful if used on top of the war wagons, because the Eagle Claw bolt throwers will focus their fire on it, and since it only has 3 models, regrowths can be absolutely viciously effective when healing those small unit counts. Over here, mortars seem to be missing their shot, but there's a lot of high value targets from the Wood Elves, or from the High Elves, sorry, and I'm curious to see how they do. But main concern for the Empire right now is if these Rangers close the gap and get on top of the state troops, they will shred them. Empire Knights getting a side charge on top of these Rangers, not going to do too much damage. It was kind of an awkward angle, but going to stop them for a moment. But now the Nobles and Teclis have come into play, and that is not good. Over here, Net of a Mintok going down on top of a very aggressive flank from the Empire troops, pinning them in place, allowing some Spearmen to intercept them. So very nice plays from Alfredino so far, playing this very clean. Over here on the other flank, you're going to see that a regrowth has been used on top of the Demogryph Knights with halberds, who have taken a lot of damage from the Eagle Claw bolt throwers by the looks of it. Over here, looks like the right flank of the Empire still in the grips of combat with the High Elves. We have Spearmen coming forward. The High Elves look like they may have the advantage here because High Elf Spearmen are already on top of here, meat shielding for their hero squad, and the Nobles are just doing a lot of damage to the Royal Outdoor Griffiths, but Shield of Faith, Earthblood, and the Hammer of Sigmar and Standard Ground and the Reichland Reefing all got popped right there, and we'll see if that can bring this engagement into the Empire corner, or if it'll be too little too late. Meanwhile, over here, the Empire finding a bit more success. Looks like we have some archers routing. Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower are wavering, but the Demogryph Knights need to get out of combat with the Spearmen ASAP. Over here, though, the Empire State Troops, although it looks like they had some initial engagements that were promising, are now getting sliced and diced by the Rangers, and it looks like we're going to see a full surround as these guys act as the hammer to this anvil. And the Empire State Troops going to be caught in the middle of some very, very vicious mid-range anti-infantry infantry. Now, over here, Rangers holding their own in this engagement against some blobbed up Empire units. And then in the back lines, we're going to see that the Empire still hanging in there. Karl Franz is doing some nasty work against these nobles with the Warrior Priest and the Jade Wizard. And yeah, that's the power of Karl Franz. But a net of a Mintok just got popped down, which means Karl Franz is stuck in place and has to watch helplessly as the noble does some work against his allies and then pulls out to safety. Balance of power dead even between these two troops, or between these two armies. And the War Wagon with mortars is only, yeah, it's down to one model, and it has used up barely any of its ammunition. That's a real shame, because think of all of these blobbed up High Elves that it could have been doing so much work against, and I think it's just kind of been left off on the periphery of the field, not doing too much. It's only got one kill, and that is a crying shame. I wanted to see the War Wagon do a lot of work, and just look at all the work there is to be done by a mortar. Over here, Terror kicking in on top of the Noble from the Royal Outdoor Griffiths, who are still just in there hanging by a thread. Shield of Faith, Standard Ground are still popped. But you have the High Elf Archers and the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower laying in pressure from the peripheries here, and that suppressing fire is going to be absolutely devastating. War Wagon looks like it's still just kind of not firing. It looks idle almost. Silver bullets are getting shot down by the archers. But the High Elf leadership is really starting to take a lot of damage. That Noble routing with barely any health left, only 216 HP. Karl Franz still looking very healthy. Warrior Priest not looking the healthiest, just under 1,000 HP, but the Jade Wizard can heal him up a bit more. He still has plenty of room to go. Alright, we have Empire Knights regrouping, coming back to the fight. Not a moment too soon. And we'll see if any of the other cav for the Empire can get back into play. They will be sorely needed, although there's a lot of High Elf Spearmen to deal with right now. Empire Knights going in, getting on top of those High Elf Archers, tossing them to and fro. But the artillery is going to be chipping away at them the entire time, and now we're going to see some High Elf Spearmen quickly getting microed in to counter their acts of aggression against their archers. Warrior Priest beginning to waver, and the balance of power starting to go in favor of the High Elves here in quite a serious way, and looks like the Warrior Priest may not even make it into combat, but there he goes, getting a leadership bonus from that charge, and they're both going after Teclis. Teclis very slippery though. He has the Potion of Shakroy popped, as well as the Sword of Teclis. Karl Franz is going to abandon the chase as some spearmen move to play defense, and he's going to start trying to kill off these archers. Silver Bullets getting some nice fire into the High Elves here. I mean, looking at the balance of power, both players still have a very good shot at this. Right now, Jade Wizard eliminating the remaining Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower crew, but now going to run away. Karl Franz staying in combat, feeling confident enough. But these Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers need to be dealt with, because all of these heroes on horses are going to get sniped down by him. These Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers are actually proving to be perhaps one of the most valuable components of this High Elf army, but I have to say every component of this High Elf army has kind of been playing its part, and I like to see that. Over here, Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers switching to Scatter Shot, and going to start doing some serious damage to the Silver Bullets here. And it just looks like the Empire is running out of tools to win this fight. You know, Karl Franz is really giving a big buff to the balance of power, And if he was on a griffin, I might believe it. But right now, he is just on a horse, and he's getting pinned in place by spearmen because he has not as much mass as he's normally used to. And he's not causing terror. And it looks like a regrowth is going to go down on top of him. That's probably going to be the last of the magic that the Empire has here. So Kark may not be in the best of positions right here. He has the Reichland Runefang popped, as well as a regrowth, but the enfeebling foe just went down on top of him. Looks like Karl Franz will not go down without a fight. He's going to kill the noble off. But will he be able to kill Teclis or any of these other troops that are grouping up around him? I think not. With Galmaraz in hand, he will continue the fight to the bitter end, but Teclis looks like he's going to come away victorious today. Some state troops desperately charging in, trying to save their Emperor Karl Franz. And Karl Franz, would you look at that? He's still fighting. He's hitting Teclis. He's making sure he remembers his name. He's killing off some silver helms, but army losses are going to kick in, and it will be a valiant defeat for Kark and the Empire. Whew. That was a good series. Yeah, a very well played game to both players. Alfredino, by that third round, looks like he was picking up on Kark's playstyle there, kind of zeroing in, and coming out with the victory. That was very well played to both of these players, though. I mean, once again, big shout out to both of these guys and to Kark. Love the builds, my friend. I think my biggest critique in this battle is that the war wagon was not a priority. It felt like an afterthought to me. And I know I'm biased, okay? So I'll be very upfront with that. I'm biased because I love the war wagons with mortars. I think they are not only hilarious and the ultimate meme, but also can be deceptively effective when underestimated. If you bring a couple of those bad boys, or even just this one in this fight, I think if the war wagon would have been treated differently, it could have gotten a ton, and I mean a ton, of value in this fight. If it would have approached from the left flank, right, gotten behind or on the other side of the forest, so the Eagle Claw bolt throwers couldn't really target it that well, and if the Jade Wizard there had used even a single regrowth on top of it, and it was firing for that entire battle, guaranteed you would have seen mad kills. Mad kills. Because this army from the High Elves is just, like, besides the Silver Helms, it's infantry. It's all slow infantry. And the Empire had in spades the cavalry power. So if the High Elves, to me, in this army, had to break formation and play aggressively, they probably would have lost, because this is clearly a high elf build that's saying to an Empire army, hey, come get me, because we're going to sit on these Eagle Claw bolt throwers and they will kill off all of your Valaby units piece by piece. These archers will shoot you down, and when you close the gap, our infantry will crush your infantry. However, I want to point out those Rangers clearly could destroy the Empire infantry, but if the Empire had sat back and was letting this war wagon do work, and while their infantry approach or something, like, or even just like, let's say they didn't play it differently and it was just still alive in the late game, it would have been able to do so much work against Rangers and High Elf Spearmen. But it just, I spent this entire post-battle session just talking about the war wagon hypothetical here. So I apologize to the players, to the fans, because this isn't the most critical analysis of it, but I just want to point out, like, that is value that I think really could have been there, and with Kark putting it in his army, I don't think it was a bad decision. I just think it was underutilized. Now, regarding the rest of these armies, the High Elf army, once again from Alfredino, beautifully balanced. You have the nobles and spearmen, just to, like, spearmen to clog up Empire cavalry and nobles to kill the Empire cavalry. Make no mistake, those two nobles, those 11 kills on each of them were probably Demogryph Knights and Empire Knights, and that is value. They dish out so much damage when they're up against cav blobs. But they need a meat shield there to protect them, and Alfredino used them excellently. The Nets of Amintok from Teclis were on point, the Enfeebling Foe on point, and seems like the regrowths did some good work too, but I mean, Karl Franz, gotta love him. He was the only answer to those nobles, and he answered the call. He killed both of them in that fight, and that's how much of a boss he is. But the High Elf army just overall very well balanced. You have the Silver Helms that act as the last resort, basically, kind of protecting the backline, providing mass once again for the nobles, but also for the spearmen. And then you just let the archers and the Eagle Claw bolters do their nasty work, while the rangers, when they come to grips with the Empire infantry, just, I mean, the kills speak for themselves. It's astounding. But to sum it up, great best of 3. Happy to start the stream with it, and excited to see what happens next. But man, it's going to be hard to top. Those 2 players really brought it. So congrats to Alfredino. Better luck next time to Kark. He's a tournament veteran and a regular. So excited to see him continue to play and hopefully make it further in one of the upcoming seasons. So let's go see who we have next.